Okay. Hi, my name is Gushi Toyon, and this presentation is about an energy audit I did on my home. And the first section of this presentation is the background and energy context. And these are the different things that we're going to go over in that section. And introduction, I live in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, about 20 minutes away from the University of Minnesota in an urban suburb. And I live in a single family detached home. And a detached home is just a residential unit, not connected to any other unit. So it just usually refers to houses. And some important facts about my home is that my home was built in 1962, which means that it wasn't really built to be energy efficient. But over the course of the past 10 years living here, we've made updates to the home that has allowed it to be more efficient. The home is about 1,900 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 2 empty rooms and 1.5 bathrooms. The 2 empty rooms were turned into bedrooms as well. And 8 people, including me, live in my home. And this is the annual energy use in the Midwest and the energy use in my home. So my home last month, June 2025, consumed about 795 kilowatt hours over the course of 32 days. And this is just the electricity bill for that. On the left is a chart, I guess, or a graph of the average annual electricity consumption by type of home and census region 2015. And it basically shows that for a single family detached home in the Midwest, the amount of energy they consume annually would be 10,754 kilowatt hours. This would mean that those types of homes in the Midwest consume 896.117 kilowatt hours on average. And then this is just a comparison of my family's energy use, which is 795 kilowatt hours, to the average monthly energy use in the Midwest of a single detached family home. The difference is about 100 kilowatt hours. And then this is the likely breakdown of energy use in devices. So on the right, it shows the average energy use of the 7 devices measured measured over the course of a week, or it's just the average energy use per day. All of these were devices that I measured for this presentation, and the likely breakdown just shows the breakdown of how energy is likely being used in my home based off another study made by the Minnesota Energy Department. And then for the audit process and data, these are the different topics that are going to be discussed: the 8 devices, how is time logged, calculating data, and then the data itself. And so these are the 8 devices I measured: from the white microwave, a water dispenser. This is my phone, a freezer. To log the time the microwave was actively being used, I just surveyed my family on how much time they think they used the microwave. There wasn't really anything else I could do. To log how much time the water dispenser was actively being used, I measured how much time it would take to fill the average sized cup in my home with water, which was about 20 seconds. Then each day, over the course of 7 days, I would ask each family member how many cups of water they drank that day, add that total up together, and multiply it by 20. That's the best I could do in the situation. To log the amount of time that the charging laptop, the light bulb, the charging phone, the lamp, and the freezer, and the charging iPad were used, I either used a time measuring device like my phone or my iPad to measure the amount of time each device consumed energy. To log the amount of time the light bulb specifically used energy, I just turned it on and off at specific times. So say I would turn the light bulb on at 8 or 8:30 or 9, I would try to turn it off at 9 or 9:30 or 10. And if I didn't, I would just calculate the amount of time that it was on. To log the amount of time the freezer used energy, because I knew that the freezer used energy 24/7, I just started a 24-hour timer and recorded how much the average energy the freezer used over the course of that time using my kilometer or kilowatts. To calculate the daily energy use of a constant power device, we measured the amount of power the device used while powered on or actively being used, and while powered off or actively being unused in kilowatts. And we measured the amount of time the device is powered on or actively being used in hours, and subtract that time from 24 hours to find the time the device is using power while powered off or actively being unused. Energy is the product of power, so the daily energy is power on times power on per day plus power off times power off per day. For example, a light bulb uses 0.008 kilowatts of power. On Saturday, the light was left on for 2.7 hours per day. The energy per that day was 0.216 kilowatt hours per day. To calculate the daily energy use of a variable power device, because the power a variable power device uses is not constant, it makes more sense to allow a kilowatt to find the average amount of power used over the course of 24 hours. To find the average power of the device, divide the daily power by 24 hours per day. For example, a kilowatt measured that the daily energy of a freezer in my home is 0.85 kilowatt hours per day. Because the freezer is on 24 hours per day, the average power of the freezer would have to be 0.037 kilowatts. To calculate the daily energy use of a variable power device with the cycle, 1, use a kilowatt to find the average amount of energy a device uses over the course of the cycle. 2, to find the average power of the device, divide the energy by the time the device takes to complete a cycle. For example, a kilowatt measured that the daily energy of a microwave in my home on Sunday is 0.0711 kilowatt hours per day. When the microwave is actively being used, the energy per cycle is 0.02 kilowatt hours per cycle. When it is not being actively used, the power it uses is 0.0026 kilowatts. If the microwave is being used for 2 minutes or 0.03 hours, the power it would use is 0.67 kilowatts. And then this is all the data that I gathered over the course of 7 days. And this is the key to understanding this data. Also, this is how everything was calculated. For the last section, what have I learned? These are the different things we'll be going over: general observations, experimental results, and conclusions. For general observation, one thing I noticed about the data is that the only high energy user was the freezer. Everything else consumed significantly less kilowatt hours per day on average than the freezer. On average, about 1.1 kilowatt hours is being used a day by all these devices. This would mean that from these 8 devices alone, 34.4 kilowatt hours are being used a month. Another thing I noticed is that most devices are variable, especially if they are appliances like a rice cooker or the freezer that we used in the experiment. Although the water dispenser was thought to be a variable power device at first with the cycle, it was found that the power is constant when the device is being actively used and unused. Because of this, the daily energy of the water dispenser is calculated like it is a constant power device. And for the experimental results, this is a pie chart of the total monthly energy consumption, which is 795 kilowatt hours per month. The average monthly energy of the 8 devices, which is 34.3 kilowatt hours per month, is only about 4.3% of the total energy of the home. Another graph that demonstrates this is on the side, and it just shows all the average energy of the devices per day compared to the estimated daily energy used. To the conclusions, one way I could improve my energy use is to almost exclusively use the lamp in my room instead of the light bulb. My room uses three of the light bulbs used in the experiment to light up my room. But what I found is that the lamp lights up my room extremely well, especially at night when I need just enough light to do homework, but not too much light that it is disruptive. I would save about 0.22% of my total monthly energy if I switched to using only the lamp and not any of the light bulbs. Another way I could significantly reduce energy is by unplugging the microwave when it is not actively being used. This would save me about 0.225% of the total monthly energy. Unfortunately, there seems to be no real way to target the really heavy energy users like the fridge, because it needs to remain plugged in order to freeze food. And these are the references I used. Thank you.